Hello and welcome back to Pass a Turn. This is another deep dive into one of the upcoming deck techs from Magic the Gathering and Zendikar Rising. So this is the Sneak Attack deck tech featuring Anawan the Ruined Thief as the commander. Before we go into it, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell notification if you want to be notified of any future videos. We are doing a series at the moment which is consuming a lot of the channel's time called Pass a Turn Versus. That's when us and the team go and face off against a local game store around the UK in a two-headed giant EDH battle. So make sure you go and check that series out. Next episode comes out on Monday, and it's like a monthly thing. We've got loads of shops lined up for it. So this is just a little quick deep dive into what we can expect from the Ruined Thief Anawan deck. The Command Zone obviously covered it in great detail, but I'm going to go into every single card because they didn't do that. They didn't go into every single card, but I will do that. So yeah, I think it's a really, really good product because it's the cheapest Commander deck we've ever seen. I picked it up from Atlantic Games for £20 in the UK, which I think is awesome. There's the Lands Matter Naya deck and this deck, and this is all about milling your opponents, drawing some cards and stealing stuff from their graveyards. And it's very, very thematic, a lot of rogues and some really, really good reprints as well, so I'll go into those as and when I come across them. But yeah, so this is run by Anawan the Ruined Thief. So this is a legendary creature, Vampire Rogue. So this costs 2 generic blue and black for a legendary creature, Vampire Rogue. It's a 2/4, but it is a Rogue Lord, so other rogues you control get +1/+1, so that's a good buff for your entire team. And it says, whenever one or more rogues you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card for each 1 damage dealt to them. If the player mills at least 1 creature card this way, you draw a card. So if in Magical Christmas Land you attack each player, you can get 3 triggers off this. You don't get multiple triggers off of 1 player. It's if 1 or more rogues you control deal damage to a player. So in order to get the maximum card draw, you need to attack the maximum amount of players with this. But still, it will mill a card for each 1 damage dealt to them, which is good. And if it's a creature card, out of those cards that you mill, you draw a card. So it is good. It's rewarding that combat, rewarding those rogues for attacking. And a lot of your rogues in this deck are unblockable or are hard to block, period. So it means that you're probably going to be replacing that card or getting an extra card every turn, which is decent. So Anawan, a very, very fitting creature for the deck. He also pumps up all of your rogues as well. So it's not only a valuable commander to have of card draw and mill, interacting with the opponent's grave and making it accessible to you, but it is always giving your other rogues a buff as well, which is going to obviously add up because they're all hard to block. So yeah, Anawan the Ruined Thief, a fantastic iteration of the character. Obviously we saw him as Anawan the Ruined Sage, mono black, cared about vampires back in the first iteration of him. But yeah, so completely different. Love the artwork as well. He's like got a Superman cape on, and he's obviously amongst the sky claves, the big floating islands of Zendikar, so it looks awesome. And I thought I'd pick this up because it is Rogue-Tribal, because of the announcement that next year they're doing a Dungeons and Dragons set. There's going to be support for this because this is a vampire rogue, and rogue is obviously one of the classes in D&D, and rogue is obviously one of the things that's being fleshed out in Zendikar Rising at the moment. So I feel that there's going to be a lot of support for rogues, which is why I thought I'd just pick up this deck, but especially for 20 quid. You know, 20 quid is an absolute steal. You've got some awesome cards in here. You've got commander staples in here. It's just fantastic, fantastic price point for, albeit an entry-level commander deck. Just thought it would be a fantastic pickup. And Rudy from Alpha Investments has a whole 10-minute discussion on how these products are probably slipping under the radar and would be a good time to get them. So yeah, that sort of influenced my decision. So thank you, Rudy. Taco Man. Okay, so 30 creatures in this deck, so I'm going to go through the creatures first of all, and it's in ascending order with regards to CMC, which is nice. I'm looking at this on MTG Goldfish, so you can follow along on there if you want. So yeah, the first one we have is Changeling Outcast. So this is a 1/1 shapeshifter, so this counts as a rogue as well. Actually, no, Shapeshifter's got nothing to do with it. It's Changeling. The mechanic Changeling means he's every creature type, or she is every creature type, which is what we need. So this costs 1 black. It's a 1/1 Shapeshifter, Changeling, so this card is every creature type, and this cannot block and can't be blocked, so it's going straight through no matter what, basically. Go away, stupid fly. So you'll probably see a lot of comparisons between this and Yuriko. Yuriko is the ninja commander, which you would have seen Troy, one of our team members here, do a deck tech on a while back, so you'll see that floating around up there somewhere. You can see a lot of creatures that are similar in this deck, but a lot of them will be rogues instead rather than ninjas. So yeah, Changing Outcast, just a nice little 1/1 drop which cannot be blocked, which will obviously work in tandem with Anawan the Ruined Thief to draw your cards. Next we have Merfolk Wind Robber. This is a 1 blue CMC Merfolk Rogue with flying. It's a 1/1. And whenever Merfolk Wind Robber deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card. So this is from Zendikar Rising, this card. And then it also says, sacrifice Merfolk Wind Robber to draw a card. Activate this ability only if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. And I think that's a little bit of a side theme in the actual set. To get your rogue decks online, a lot of them do have to have 8 or more cards in the grave. I think that's we sort of covered that in the podcast as well, so check out the podcast for more discussion on that. Next we have Slitherblade. This is a Naga rogue, so like a snake sort of creature rogue. It's a 1/2, cannot be blocked, and it costs 1 singular blue, so that's a fantastic card. Nice little rogue. Next we have Triton Shore Stalker. So this is a 1 mana, so this costs 1 blue, and it's a 1/1, and it simply can't be blocked. Merfolk rogue. So there's a lot of Merfolk in the deck, a lot of rogues obviously, and I think a lot of these cards will actually feature in Troy's deck, Yuriko deck as well, because it's all about just getting damage through. Next we have Fairy Vandal. This costs 1 blue and 1 other. This is from Eldraine, actually. This is a Fairy Rogue. It's a 1/2 with flash and flying, so you can flash out instant speed if needed. And then whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Fairy Vandal. So you hopefully, Magical Christmas Land, as Josh and Jimmy say on Command Zone. Magical Christmas Land is that you draw your second card each turn from your Anawan the Ruined Sage trigger, so this is just going to get consistently bigger, and it's flying as well, so it can help block big threats coming in, and hopefully deal damage over the top if they don't have flyers. Next we have Frog Tosser Banneret. Okay, I've never seen this card before. This is awesome. I believe this is from Lorwyn. I wasn't playing back then, but it does look like a Lorwyn card. Frog Tosser Banneret, 1 black and 1 other. For a Goblin Rogue, it's a 1/1 with haste, and Goblin spells and Rogue spells you play cost 1 less. Okay, that's good. So it's like a tribal ramp card, which is really, really good. So it will make all of your rogues cost 1 less. I think there are a few goblins in here as well, including this guy. But yeah, we'll come across those as we speak about them. Next is Invisible Stalker. This costs 1 blue and 1 other for a human rogue. It's 1/1 with hexproof. So it cannot be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control, and Invisible Stalker is also unblockable. So a fantastic way of getting through some damage, and also it looks like it's going to be sticking around most of the time because it can't be targeted removed. Invisible Stalker, very, very good. Very, very good card. I was going to say then it could go in the Mutate deck as a Mutate target, but it is a human rogue, so that would be impossible. Next is Night Veil Sprite. This costs 1 blue and 1 other for a Fairy Rogue from Ravnica. This is a 1/2 with flying, and whenever it attacks, you surveil 1. So you look at the top card of your library, and you may put that card into your graveyard. So it's a good way of just getting rid of the top card of your library if you don't want it, which then opens up more opportunity underneath, which is nice, and it's a Fairy Rogue as well, so it'll be a 2/3 if you've got your commander out. Next we have Una's Blackguard, which is what costs 1 black and 1 other for a Fairy Rogue. It's a 1/1 with flying. I don't know what set this is from. Each other rogue you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, so that's fantastic. All of your creatures are going to come in with a +1/+1 counter, in addition to what Paratefs they already have. And then whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card, which is awesome. So not only are you going to potentially be getting a lot of damage through with your rogues, but you're also going to be making them discard their cards, which you can then potentially reanimate or steal from their grave at a later date. So good synergies with that. Next we have Soaring Thought Thieves. This is a Dimir, so black and blue, for a human rogue from Zendikar Rising as well. 1/3 flash flyer, human rogue. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1 attack, +1/+0. So again, that theme in Zendikar is 8 or more cards in the grave. That's what turns your rogues on for some reason. And whenever 1 or more rogues you control attacks, each opponent mills 2 cards. Whenever 1 or more rogues you control attacks, each opponent mills 2 cards. You don't get multiple triggers of that unless you've got Shrinic Resonator or something like that, but that's pretty good. Making your opponents mill cards is what you want to be doing in this, by the looks of it. Next we have a massive reprint in Sig Rither Cutthroat. This is an awesome card. Professor loves this, I believe. So this is Dimir Hybrid for a legendary creature Merfolk Rogue. So this is a 1/3. And at the end of turn, if an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, you may draw a card. So that doesn't just affect your turn. At end of turn, if an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, you may draw a card. So if people are doing damage to each other, your enemies are doing damage to each other, Sig, I believe, will still trigger, which is awesome for just additional card draw, which will then factor into stuff like your Una's Blackguard whenever you draw. No, not Una's Blackguard. What was it? I can't remember what it was, the draw card one, whenever you draw a card. Fairy Vandal, stuff like that. Anyway, I digress. Sig Rither Cutthroat, awesome reprint. Next we have Zulaport Cutthroat, a classic from Aristocrats and Draining Life decks. This is a human rogue ally, and this is a black and 1 for a 1/1. Whenever Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain 1 life. So it's a nice little way of, whenever stuff dies on your side of the field, you get to drain your opponents, which is nice. Next we have Marang River Prowler. This is from Fate Reforged, I believe. This costs 1 blue and 2 others, and it's a 2/1 human rogue. It can't block and it can't be blocked, so it's just swinging in most of the time. And then you may cast Marang River Prowler from your graveyard as long as you control a black or green permanent. So it's just bit of a pest because it always keeps coming back, and then obviously it can activate some card draw by keep swinging. So yeah, that could be quite good. But next we have Night Howler. This is black and 1 for a enchantment creature, horror, and it has a bestow cost. So you can bestow it if you cast this card for its bestow cost, which is black and 2. It's an aura spell with enchant creature. It becomes a creature again if it's not attached to a creature. So you can bestow it if you want. And Night Howler and enchanted creature each get +X/+X, where X is number of creature cards in all graveyards. So that should be adhering to your strategy of milling people and just hitting creatures, because this will become more and more powerful as time goes on. Night Howler. Next we have a lovely rogue, Gonti, Lord of Luxury. This is a legendary creature, Aetherborn Rogue. It's black and 2, and it's a 2/3 with Death Touch. But when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library and exile 1 of them face down. Then put the rest on the bottom of that library in a random order. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may look at it, you may cast it, and you may spend mana as though a mana of any colour to cast it, which is fantastic. So Gonti doesn't have to be out, I believe, to cast it. You just exile 1 of those 4 cards, and as long as it remains exiled, you can just cast it. And you can spend mana of any colour, I believe. I don't think Gonti has to be out for that ability to continue to be active. But yeah, that's just awesome card. Doesn't really work with the mill strategy because it's exiling them, but still a great card and an awesome rogue to have in there. Next we have Latchkey Fairy. So this is a fairy rogue, not sure what set. This costs 1 blue and 3 others for a 3/1 with flying, but it does have a prowl cost also. So you may cast this card for its prowl cost if you dealt damage to a player this turn with a fairy or a rogue. So the prowl cost is 1 blue and 2 others. And when it enters the battlefield, if its prowl cost was paid, you draw a card. So just a nice little flying rogue that you can then draw a card if you've dealt damage to somebody already. So that's quite cool. Next we have another cool reprint, a legendary creature, that's Lazav Dimir Mastermind. So this is blue and black for a legendary shapeshifter creature. It's a 3/3 with hexproof, so it's really hard to remove, which is nice. And then whenever a creature card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you may have Lazav Dimir Mastermind become a copy of that card, except its name is still Lazav, and it's legendary in addition to its other types, and it gains hexproof and has this ability. So Lazav just literally wants to turn into whatever creatures go into the grave, which is fantastic. And on top of that, it's going to retain its ability, so you can just transform into whatever he wants, whatever hits the grave, and it's still going to have hexproof, which is just unbelievable card. I don't know why I haven't ever really used that or seen that. I just haven't really run many Dimir decks, but this is going to be my first Dimir deck. This Rogue-Tribal. Next we have Marsh Flitter. This is a fairy rogue. It's 1/1 with flying. It costs 1 black and 3 others. When it comes into play, when it enters the battlefield from Lorwyn, very old text, put 2 1/1 black goblin rogue creature tokens into play. So you get 3 rogues for 4 mana, which is a pretty good rate. And then you can sacrifice a goblin, so potentially one of the tokens you just made, and then the Marsh Flitter becomes a 3/3 until end of turn. So it can pump itself up by sacrificing one of those goblins. Yeah, 4 mana for 3 rogues is pretty good. Next we have Master Thief from M12. Wow, okay. This is a human rogue. It costs blue and 2. And when Master Thief enters the battlefield, gain control of target artifact for as long as you control Master Thief. So that's pretty decent. You can steal loads of good artifacts. You can steal swords, soul rings, signets, mana vaults, mana crypts, anything for as long as you control Master Thief, which is pretty good. And it's 2/2 human rogue. M12, so you know they were including this rogue for a long time, but it was only when we started seeing like warlocks and clerics and stuff. Well, clerics have been around for ages, I'm just talking trash. But that's what I do here on Pass the Turn, I talk utter garbage. Next we have an awesome reprint, Notion Thief. This has done some serious damage to me in, serious mental damage to me in previous games. This is a human rogue, it's a flash, it's a 3/1. It costs 1 blue, 1 black and 2 others. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one he or she draws in each of his or her draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. So this just like turns off my Villis Broker of Blood deck, and Josh has used Notion Thief against me for a couple of times, and it's ridiculously powerful in wheeling decks because you make everyone discard their hand and then they draw that many cards potentially, but they don't do that, you just steal that draw instead, so you just discard everyone's hand. Notion Thief makes you draw more cards. It's just, yeah, horrible card, very powerful. And it's a rogue, so just extra gravy in this deck. Next we have Stink Drinker Bandit, or sounds like me, Stink Drinker. 100%, looks like me as well. So this costs 1 black and 3 others for a goblin rogue with prowl. So you can cast it for its prowl cost if you dealt damage with a goblin or rogue this turn. And then whenever a rogue you control attacks and isn't blocked, it gets +2/+1 until end of turn, and it's a 2/1 itself. So yeah, a lot of your rogues are going to attack and not be blocked. So that +2/+1 can get you more damage, which will trigger Anawan's ability, because obviously you mill for each damage you've dealt. So that can be pretty good. The Stink Drinker, which is, I never thought I'd say that sentence. Stink Drinker can be a good thing. Next we have Sure-Footed Infiltrator. This is a Merfolk Rogue from Zendikar Rising again. Costs 1 blue and 3 others. A lot of Merfolk Rogues in this particular set. It's a 2/3. Tap another untapped Rogue you control. Sure-Footed Infiltrator can't be blocked this turn. So that immediately feeds back into the Stink Drinker because it can't be blocked. It gets more damage goes through. And then whenever Sure-Footed Infiltrator deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So again, just rewarding you for attacking. And dealing combat damage to draw cards and steal things from your opponents. Great flavour. Next we have Whirler Rogue. This is a human rogue artificer. Okay, so this rogue can create things as well. Kaladesh, maybe. Blue and 2 for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 colourless stop to artifact creature tokens for flying. That's quite good, gives you a couple of little flying blockers. And then you can tap 2 untapped artifacts you control. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. So that's good. So it's a way of making rogues unblockable again, by just making them fly in on Thopters by the looks of it. That's cool. Whirler Rogue, nice. Creates a little army for you as well, just in case you need chump blockers. Next is a cool card, Consuming Aberration. It's nothing to do with rogues whatsoever. It just looks like a giant centipede from the sewers of Ravnica, and this is a horror creature. It costs 1 blue, 1 black, and 3. Consuming Aberration's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards. This can be absolutely huge. And then whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of his or her library until they reveal a land card, and then puts those cards into the graveyard. So, yeah, this card, Consuming Aberration, is going to be huge a lot of the time. So, yeah, you do not want to be leaving that around. The Consuming Aberration, that's going to be absolutely massive in this deck. Next we have one of my favourite rogues. I played it in a lot of decks because I used to love Aristocrats and Sacrifice theme, but I never really got it to work in a EDH environment. But that is Ogre Slumlord. So this is black and 3 for a 3/3 Ogre Rogue. Whenever another non-token creature dies, not just yours, but anyone's non-token creature dies, you may create a 1/1 black rat creature token. So whenever a non-token creature dies anywhere, you get to have a 1/1 rat if you so desire. The answer to that is most of the time yes. And then rats you control have Death Touch as long as Ogre Slumlord is alive, so you just get an army of plagued rats basically, which is great. It's a great army for blocking things because they trade with any creature that's coming along the ground at you, which is lovely. Next we have Sir Conrad the Grim. This is a legendary creature, Human Knight from Eldraine. This costs black and 3, and it's a 5/4, so good stat block. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. So that counts for creatures dying, creatures being milled, creatures being discarded. Whenever anything basically hits the grave or leaves the grave, that's when Sir Conrad's going to damage everybody, which is fantastic. And tacked on, he also has the ability of pay 1 generic and 1 black. Each player puts a top card of their library into their graveyard. So great way of milling people, dealing damage, and just rewarding that mill. Next we have a huge reprint in Una, Queen of the Fae. This is an awesome card. This costs 3 generic and then Dimir Hybrid, Dimir Hybrid, Dimir Hybrid for a legendary creature Fairy Wizard. So it's a 5/5 with flying. Has an awesome ability, pay X and Dimir, choose a colour. Target opponent removes the top X cards of his or her library from the game. For each card of the chosen colour removed this way, put a 1/1 blue and black Fairy Rogue creature token with flying into play. So just a great way of just removing people's libraries from the game and just getting that many rogues into play with flying. So she is the queen of Bitter Blossom, basically. Next we have Enigma Thief. I'm not sure whether this is new or reprint or not. I haven't seen it before, but yeah, this costs blue and 5. This is a Sphinx Rogue. Interesting. It's a 5/5 with flying, and it has Prowl, so you can cast it for 3 generic and 1 blue if a Sphinx or Rogue has dealt damage this turn. And then when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, return up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls to its owner's hand. So nice little bit of removal. Early on you can also play it for its Prowl cost, but later on you can still play it for the actual CMC, but you probably won't be doing that. You'll probably be casting a lot of your Prowl cards for its Prowl cost because of the fact that Rogue is going to be dealing some damage. Next we have a random card in here, Scourge of Fleets. I don't know why this is in here, to be honest. You'd probably swap this one out pretty quickly. So this is a not legendary creature. One of my favourite creatures actually, because it's in my Slim Voda deck, but I digress. This is a blue and 5 for a creature Kraken 6/6. When it enters the battlefield, return each creature your opponents control with toughness X or less to its owner's hand, where X is the number of islands you control. So it's a one-sided board wipe, but it is dependent on the number of islands you control. And I believe this deck has a lot of basic lands in it, but yeah, I think that could be changed for potentially something else. But yeah, it's cool to see a little Kraken in there. Next we have the last creature on the list is Sepulchral Primordial. I'm not sure whether I've said that correctly or not. Sepulchral Primordial. This is a avatar creature, 5/4 with Intimidate. It costs black, black, and 5. But when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, you may put up to one target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So this is just basically a giant payoff for all of the mill that you've been doing. So you drop this on turn 6 or 7. Hopefully you would have milled some big creatures into your opponent's grave that you can then just drop this with and reanimate them all onto your side of the field. That's the ultimate payoff. So yeah, that's a pretty good card, and it factors into the fact that by the time you can cast this primordial creature, you should have filled up your opponent's grave with big creatures, hopefully. So that's all the creatures in the deck. The flavour there is basically just getting in as much unblocked damage as you can, milling your opponents, getting rid of their library, making them discard cards, unblockable damage. There's a couple of board state creators in there as well, so you're always going to have a lot of little creatures in this deck, so you could be in trouble if you're facing like big green trample. Yeah, you got stuff like your Enigma Thief and stuff to return that to their opponent's hands and all that sort of stuff. And you've got Lazav who can copy creatures. So yeah, I mean, you're always going to be in trouble against big, massive, tramply creatures in decks like this because it is very, very low to the floor, sneaky decks. But yeah, hopefully you will be milling them enough to use their own graveyard against them. And I think that's what we're going to get into now in the spells section of the deck list. But yeah, very, very low to the floor, low power and toughness, but Anawan does give them a little bit of a buff as well, so nice little creature base there. One creature I probably will add, it's in my Mutate deck at the moment, and that's Tharda Adel, which is a Merfolk Rogue. I can't remember off the top of my head what the CMC is, but it's an Island Walk, I think, 3/3 Island Walk, and whenever it deals damage to a player, you get to search that player's library for an artifact and exile it, and you can cast it that turn. So it's just a great way of just potentially casting your opponent's best artifacts out of their deck, and then just, if you can't do that, exiling it. So Tharda Adel is a Merfolk Rogue as well, so it's a shame she's not in here, because she is very, very good. And again, obviously Rogue's going to be supported going forward because it's a D&D set, so I think it's a good time to pick this one up. But yeah, so that's the creatures of the deck. Obviously I'm probably in the comments below, just drop some comments as to what rogues you would probably put in this deck if you're buying it. But yeah, let's move on to the spells now. So there's 17 of them. So the first we have Open into Wonder. So this is blue, blue, and X for a sorcery. X, target creatures can't be blocked this turn. Until end of turn, those creatures gain, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So it's a good way of making sure that those other creatures that don't have unblockable or can't be blocked, is a good way of making sure that those creatures get through. And then whenever those creatures get through, they also draw you cards as well. So fantastic card, I think, in this deck. It makes, creatures that you steal from opponents' graveyards could be unblockable, and then they gain you cards as well. So it's pretty decent in a rogue deck. Open into Wonder. I know Command Zone said that they'd probably take it out for other cards, but yeah, I think it's very, very good in the deck. Open into Wonder. Next we have a straight out Murder, black, black, and 1 for instant, destroy target creature. So that's just the assassins or the rogues of the Demir Guild just killing people in cold blood, which is nice. Next we have Soul Manipulation. This is 1 black, 1 blue, and 1 other. This is an instant. Choose one or both. Counter target's creature spell, and or return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's a counter spell for a creature, and also getting a creature back from your graveyard that was never meant to be there. So could be quite good. Just a little bit of disruption, really. Countering target creature spell could also be quite good because you don't really have ways of dealing with big creatures. So just making sure that never resolves could be quite good. Next you have Aetherize. So this is 1 blue and 3 others. This is a instant. Return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. So if you are under assault by loads of green trampling rhinos, you can just Aetherize them all to your opponent's hand, or they've got loads and loads of massive Eldrazi's or whatever, you can return them all to their owner's hands, because it's all creatures. So even if they have big tramply hexproofers, you return all attacking creatures, so that gets around that, luckily. So Aetherize is a good little defensive spell if you've tapped out from attacking with your rogues. Next we have Distant Melody. So this costs 1 blue and 3 others. It's a sorcery from Lorwyn, I believe. Choose a creature type. So obviously you choose Rogue, and then you draw a card for each permanent you control of the chosen type. So that's pretty good. It's a big draw spell for any sort of tribal shenanigans. So that's pretty good. Next we have Fact or Fiction. This costs 1 blue and 3 others. It's an instant. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So this is good because it's more of a political card. You could be, looking for a certain answer in a certain situation. You can choose an opponent that's siding with you in this particular occasion and say, right, I want this pile. Can I have this pile, please? This pile is garbage. This pile is what we need in the moment. So cards like that in multiplayer Commander games are always good because you're always going to have someone that's willing to side with you depending on what's going on at the time. So yeah, that's pretty much pay 4 mana, draw 4 cards of your choice, basically, which is quite good. As long as you have the ally there, which I most of the time, I normally do have the ally, I normally do have the player that's willing to cooperate with me, because I'm not playing ridiculously powerful decks. So most of the time I can get away with that, which is nice. So if you think about it, look at the top 5 cards, put 4 of them into your hand, one into the bottom, one into your graveyard. That's a good rate if you've got the right sell skills. Next we have Notorious Throng. Never seen this card before. This is a tribal sorcery rogue. I'm not sure if they do tribal sorceries anymore. But yeah, Notorious Throng. This costs 1 blue and 3 others. It does have a prowl cost as well. So if you dealt combat damage with a rogue, you can play it for its prowl cost. And it simply says, put X 1/1 Black Fairy Rogue creature tokens with flying into play, where X is the damage dealt to your opponent's this turn. If the prowl cost was paid, you get an extra turn, which is absolutely outrageous. So you want to be playing this in your second main phase after you've dealt damage with one of your unblockable rogues. That would be fantastic. Hopefully you've dealt loads of damage with your unblockable rogues. You've got this in your hand, you play a second main phase, you're going to be doing a lot of work with that, so that's a fantastic card in this deck especially. Next we have Price of Fame. So this costs 1 black and 3 others for an instant. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a legendary creature, and it says destroy target creature and surveil 2. So that's really, really good. So if you're targeting someone's commander with this, it only costs 2 mana, 1 black and 1 other. But it destroys any creature, which is great, and it surveils 2 as well. So you look at the top 2 cards of your library and you can put them into your grave if you want. So just a little bit of card filtering is always good. Next we have Extract from Darkness from Conspiracy, I believe this art is that I'm looking at. Costs 1 blue, 1 black and 3 others for a sorcery. Each player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, then put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So this is a good way of, again, a paying off for the cards that you've milled. So each player puts top cards, 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, then put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So yeah, if you're playing against graveyard strategies or you've done enough combat damage to target someone's big creature, you can do this and put a creature card from their grave onto the battlefield under your control. That can sometimes be absolutely swingy, which is fantastic. Next we have a similar spell, Rise from the Grave, costs 1 black and 4 others. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colours and types. So again, paying off for the fact that you're going to be dealing damage and milling people with Anawan's ability. So yeah, again, another good card for putting a creature from your opponent's grave onto the battlefield under your control, which can again be backbreaking. Next, Silumgar's Command. This costs 1 blue, 1 black and 3 for an instant from Dragons of Tarkir. You can choose 2 of these. You can counter target non-creature spell, you can return target permanent to its owner's hand, target creature gets -3/-3 for its end of turn, or destroy target planeswalker. So a nice little utility card that you can use given the situation that you're in, which is nice. Next we have Endless Obedience. This costs black, black and 4 for a sorcery. It has Convoke, so obviously each creature that you tap can help cast for 1 of that generic mana. And it says put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So hopefully your rogues will help you cast this Endless Obedience, which will then help you reanimate an aforementioned milled card from your opponent's grave onto the battlefield under your control. So that would be pretty good as well. Next we have Spinal Embrace. This is an instant card. This costs 3 generic, blue, blue and black, and you can only cast a spell during combat. Interesting. Untap target creature you don't control and gain control of it. It gains haste instead of turn. At the beginning of your next end step, sacrifice it. If you do, you gain life equal to its toughness. So, very, very weird combat trick. So you can only cast it during combat, and you untap target creature you don't control and gain control of it. It gains haste until end of turn. Beginning of your next end step, sacrifice it. If you do, gain life. Yeah, so it's like if someone attacks you with an it that betrays, you then cast this in response to attackers, and you untap that it that betrays and gain control of it. And then at the end of turn, or the end of your next end step, you sacrifice it, and then you gain 11 life. So it can be quite a good little power play actually. You leave all your mana open, and you have a massive attack coming in at you. It could potentially save your ass. But yeah, an interesting card, very, very interesting. Next we have Stolen Identity. This costs blue, and 4. This is a sorcery. Put a token onto the battlefield as a copy of target artifact or creature. So this can steal anyone's identity, even other players, commanders or whatever. You can just take a copy of that. But then it has Cipher as well. So it says Cipher. Then you may exile. This spell card encoded on a creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may cast a copy of the encoded card without paying its mana cost. I've never seen this ability before. Cipher. Then you may exile this spell card encoded on a creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may cast a copy of the encoded card without paying its mana cost. Okay, yeah, so I guess you play this card, you copy a creature, and then you exile this spell encoded onto a creature you control, and whenever it deals damage, you can cast another creature that's been encoded. Is that how it works? Leave a comment in the section below. Haven't really seen that card ever before, and I've never ever seen Cipher being used in my playgroup, so definitely leave a comment as to how that works, please. That would be fantastic. Fated Return is the next card. Black, and 4 for an instant. It's just a very, very, very high costed instant. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains indestructible. If it's your turn, scry 2. So that's pretty good. It can nick someone's creature card from any graveyard, and it gains indestructible. Doesn't say until end of turn, it says it gains indestructible. So you got some big creatures in people's graveyards, you can return them to your side of the field. Not only that, they gain indestructible, and then you can scry too, so to smooth out your next couple of draws, which is a good play to have, I think. Yeah, so it's a good card, nice in the deck. So it's obviously again paying off for milling people, which is what you want to be doing in this deck by Anna One's abilities. Next we have Necromantic Selection. This costs black, and 4 for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures, then return a creature card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. It's a black zombie in addition to its other colours. Exile Necromantic Selection. So I believe this can now target commanders. Then it says return a creature card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. So yeah, because commanders now actually hit the grave and then go back to the command zone, I think you can steal commanders with this card, which is pretty gross actually. So yeah, that's a nice little board wipe. And then the second board wipe we have is In Garruk's Way, because this costs black, and 7 for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. So a fantastic way of just wiping the board. One-sided, fantastic, very, very good. Next we have the artifacts in the deck, and obviously you're going to have a lot of these because Dimir doesn't really have much in the form of ramp. Luckily this deck is quite low to the ground and it is quite cheap to cast a lot of the spells in the deck, but you still need some stuff, so let's go through that. Obviously you get a Soul Ring in the deck, so pay 1, taps for 2, you know what it is. Arcane Signet, again, you pay 2 for it, and it taps to have 1 mana of any colour, in this case it's Dimir. Next we have Blackblade Reforged, so this is an equipment card, costs 2 to bring in, and the equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control, so it could be extremely buffed with this if they're equipped with it. And you can equip a legendary creature to it for 3, or you can equip it to a normal creature for 7, so normally most of the time you want to be equipping it to your commander, this card. Next we have, for two mana we can play a Dimir Signet. So this you can pay 1 and tap it to add Dimir to your mana pool, which is good for mana fixing you. We got Mind Stone, which costs 2 generic and taps to add 1 colourless to your mana pool, or you can pay 1 and tap it and sacrifice it to draw a card. So that's pretty good. Command Sphere costs 3, taps to add 1 mana of any colour, and then you can also sacrifice it to draw a card. You got the Key Rune, which taps to add black or blue. It costs 3 to bring in. It can also become a 2/2 blue black and horror artifact creature and is unblockable. It's end of turn, so it can also be a little unblockable creature if you need it to be. Then you've got the Locket. Dimir Locket costs 3 generic mana, taps to add black or blue, and then you can play Dimir Hybrid, Dimir Hybrid, Dimir Hybrid, Dimir Hybrid, tap and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. If needed. Then we've got an Heirloom Blade. This costs 3 generic. It's an equipment card. A creature gets +3/+1. And then whenever a equipped creature dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with it. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is pretty good, because if one of your rogues dies, you just simply replace that rogue with another rogue while Heirloom Blade is out, which is good. Next we have one of the new cards in the deck, and that's Whisper Steel Dagger. So this is really good. This is a equipment artifact. Costs 1 black and 2 others for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. So nice little buff. You equip it for 3 as well, and it says whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may cast a creature spell from that player's graveyard this turn, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any colour to cast that spell. So again, a nice little payoff for milling cards into your opponent's grave is that you get the Whisper Steel Dagger out. You can then cast spells from your opponent's graveyard, and you can spend mana as though a mana of any colour, which is awesome. Really nice. Next we have Bone Horde. This is another equipment card. Costs 4 generic mana, and it costs 2 to equip. It's a living weapon, so when it enters the battlefield, you put a 0/0 black germ creature token onto the battlefield, then attach Bone Horde to it, and the equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So again, it could be quite a big buff if you're milling a lot of creatures. Next we have Scythe Claw, another equipment artifact. This costs 5 to play and 3 to equip. Again, it's a living weapon, so it comes attached to a germ. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half his or her life, rounded up. So a fantastic way of dealing loads and loads of damage to players because of the fact that a lot of your rogues are unblockable. So you equip a rogue with a Scythe Claw, you're going to be losing a lot of life. And also we have Obelisk of Urge, the last artifact that I'm going to speak about today, and that is a 6 mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Obviously you choose Rogue, and then creatures you control of the chosen type. So Rogues get +2/+2. So a massive buff for all of your Rogues. And it can be convoked as well. So as the more creatures you have out, the more you can tap to get this artifact out early. But yeah, that's pretty decent. You'd probably, if you got the mana, or not the mana, if you got the money, should I say, you'd probably add something like Coat of Arms into this deck, or Vanquisher's Banner, stuff that allows you to buff your creatures with additional abilities, while Coat of Arms just makes them all ridiculously powerful. And Vanquisher's Banner is +1/+1, and whenever you cast a creature of that type, you draw a card, I believe. So more artifacts like that could be quite good to have. Yeah, nice little artifact package there. A lot of equipment to make your rogues more powerful, to deal more damage, and some awesome other abilities like on the new Whisper Steel Dagger. That's really good. And finally we have the only enchantment of the deck, that is Military Intelligence. So this is an enchantment that costs 1 blue and 1 other. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card. So you probably are going to be attacking with a lot of creatures a lot of the time, because you're going to have a lot of little bodies out attacking, unblockable. So this just will fill up your hand whenever you attack with those rogues. You could also put stuff in like Coastal Piracy, Reconnaissance Mission, stuff that allows you to draw cards when you hit them as well, which could be a good little way of drawing cards as well, because a lot of your creatures are going to be unblockable. You could also put in something like Kindred Discovery. I'll probably put that in this deck, so I do have that. So Kindred Discovery is awesome. Whenever you play it, what was it? Kindred Discovery. Let me just get it up for you. Kindred Discovery. So yeah, this will probably go in the deck. So as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. So you choose Rogue, and then whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, you draw a card. So that is fantastic. I originally bought it for Locust God, but I realised that it goes infinite with Locust God, because you draw a card, create an insect, draw a card, create an insect, draw a card, create an insect. So it goes, you just mills me out basically. But in this deck, it could have a ceiling. So yeah, Kindred Discovery could be a nice little add in the enchantment section, along with the Coastal Piracy and Reconnaissance Mission style cards as well. But yeah, that's the deck. That's all the creatures, spells, artifacts, and enchantments. The lands that come in the deck, you get a command tower. So that taps to add Dimir, because obviously it's one colour in your commander's identity. You get a Dimir Aqueduct, so it's one of the bounce lands. You get a Dimir Guild Gate, you get a Dismal Backwater, you get 15 islands, 15 swamps, you get a Jwa Isle Refuge, so it's another land that enters the battlefield tapped to gain your life. Myriad Landscape, you get a Submerged Boneyard, and then you get a Rogue's Passage, which is a fantastic flavour win in this deck, Rogue's Passage. But it is just generally a good command card. Just a great way of just getting some unblocked damage through. But yeah, pretty good deck list. The fact that it was £20 is just an absolute steal, I believe, because you get a lot of awesome little cards, and it's just, the deck knows what it wants to do as well, and it's just a lot of good flavour in there, and I think it's just worth picking up, especially if it's going to remain at that price. I pre-ordered it from Atlantic Games alongside a Zendikar bundle, obviously. But yeah, I think obviously the D&D set that's coming out next year is going to have potentially more legendary rogues in there. Hopefully we see Artemis and Trieri, which is one of my favourite D&D assassin rogue characters. If we see him in here in the next year's set, he's probably going to go straight in this deck. He's a human assassin, but it could be assassin rogue. But there's going to be a lot of rogue support in D&D set next year, I believe. So that's why I picked this one up, is because rogues could generally be quite a strong archetype going forward. But any cards that you've got that now say, you know, warrior, cleric, wizard, rogue, potentially warlock that we've seen on the Kervek, the new Kervek card, as well as the Kels, the fight fixer, any sort of warlocks that you've got, or barbarians, or any other subclasses that you imagine D&D having, paladins, knights, all that sort of stuff. All those sort of cards I reckon will probably get a lot of support in D&D, which is why I picked this one up, because it's Rogue-Tribal, so there's going to be a few rogues in the D&D set guaranteed, and there could even be some legendary creatures, like I said, Artemis and Trieri. Would be great to see there. But yeah, fantastic deck overall, absolute steal, no pun intended, for £20. But yeah, some good reprints as well, and you've got a couple of commander stables like your Arcane Signets and Soul Rings and stuff, so if you don't want to, if you disassemble this deck, you've still got some value out of it to chuck in other stuff. So fantastic deck, really good price, and highly recommend getting it, especially with the support that's guaranteed to come out for rogues next year in the D&D set. I don't know what you feel as well about the slate next year, but it does look pretty awesome. There's going to be some big creatures in that Kaldheim set, that's for sure. Can't wait for that. And obviously Harry Potter set coming out. I mean Strixhaven set coming out will be interesting. And obviously the D&D, so it'll be quite good. Imagine there's going to be a few crossovers coming up after that as well. There'll probably be more and more stuff that's going to happen like this, similar to this. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you click the like and subscribe, that'll be awesome. Ring the little bell notification if you want to be notified of any future videos. Again, content has been falling behind recently because of the fact that a lot of our time and effort is going into the Pass the Turn Versus series at the moment. A lot of planning, a lot of editing, and a lot of work goes into that at the moment. So that's where the main content's going to lie. The two-headed giant EDH stuff that we travel around the country and battle local game stores. But we are organising a Commander Battles series, as well as a Pack-in Fever series as well. So there's going to be a Commander gameplay series in this room, and there's also going to be a Pack-in Fever series coming up soon as well, where it'll either be me, Tom, or one of the other members of Pass the Turn just cracking packs and seeing what good stuff we get. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. And yeah, let us know what sort of alterations you would make to this sneak attack deck if you were, or if you plan to buy it. I'd love to see what your thoughts and opinions are, or whether you think it's garbage, or whether you think it's just a cheap version of Yuriko. You know, what is this deck trying to do? What additions would you make? I'd love to see. Hit a little like and subscribe button, leave a comment. That would be awesome. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time.